Hello viewer, a warm welcome to Elimu TV where you watch and learn. I'm your teacher, Christine Okot. I'll be taking you through biology. For all your questions and any feedbacks, you can SMS us on the number 40007. You can write to us on our Facebook page, which is Elimu TV. You can also write to us. Our Twitter handle is at elimu_.ke. So this is a preview of our lesson. This is what we're going to do this lesson. So first we're going to review the previous assignment. Then we're going to look at the external features of plants. We're also going to look at the external features of animals. And lastly, I'm going to give you an assignment. So on previous assignment, the assignment was an aeroplane can move and it emits carbon dioxide and water. Explain why it is not a living thing. So you're supposed to relate the features of an aeroplane and the features of a living thing so that you can identify why it's not a living thing. So number one, it cannot do the following life processes. That's why it's not a living thing. The first one is reproduction. The second thing is growth. The aeroplane cannot grow in size or in weight. Also, the aeroplane does not undergo the process of nutrition. It cannot feed. Then, the aeroplane is not sensitive to anything around it. Then we're going to look at the external features of a plant. So a plant is divided into two parts. We have the shoot system and the root system. So the plant, in the shoot system, we have the stems and we have the leaves, we have the fruits. Each of them has a variable through the xylem and the phloem vessel. Then the fruit helps, protects the seeds and helps with seed dispersal. Then moving to the leaves, they are very important because they use the sunlight and the chlorophyll to convert carbon dioxide and water to sugar. Gives off water and oxygen. So this is in the process of photosynthesis. So the leaves are very essential. Then going to the root system, we have the root. Its work is to support the plant and take in water and the nutrients. So still looking at the external features of a plant, these are the features which we're going to look at. The first one is the stem, then the leaves. Under the leaves, we're going to look at the surfaces of leaves, how different they are, the colors of the leaves, the shape of the leaf, and the veins. Then, number three, we're going to look at the roots, the fruits, and the flowers. That one is in plants. So first, let us start looking by the stems. So we have two types of stems in the plants. We have the herbaceous stems and the woody stems. So the difference are the herbaceous stems. These are soft tissues that bend. For example, the house plant. So these ones, they have a very soft tissues. They can easily bend or they can easily break. Then we have the second type of stem, which is the woody. These ones are brittle. They are non-bendable. They are bark-like structure. For example, the trees and the shrubs. They cannot easily bend as opposed to the herbaceous stems. Then we go at look at the leaves. The first thing you're going to look at the leaves is the surface of the leaf. So the leaf, it can either be a smooth or it have a rough surface. When you look at our illustration, the first illustration, we have a leaf. Looking at the surface, it is very smooth. The second illustration, we have a leaf and the surface is very rough. You can feel the texture of the surfaces by touching them. The second thing we're going to look at is the colors of the leaf. The leaves vary in color. Some of them are just entirely green and some of them have some pigments of colors in them. So looking at the first illustration, we have a leaf that is just entirely green. All parts of the leaves are green. The second illustration, we have some pigments of green, yellow, red. So this color, this leaf has a variety of colors in them. Then we're going to look at the different shapes of the leaves and the types of veins. First, looking at the veins, we have two types of veins. We have the network veins and we have the parallel. Looking at the illustration, the first part of the leaf is a network. It's a network vein. From just the word net, it has a lot of nets. It's unlike the parallel one, which is just have one vein running from the top to the bottom. Then, if you look at the shapes of leaf, the shapes there are very different. There are a variety of them. These one are just a few to mention. The shapes of the leaf, the first one, we have the hand-shaped. We have the one that looks like a heart-shaped, the leaf there, which is red in color. Then we have a spear-shaped leaf, just like the spear, it is pointed at the edge. Then we have leaves which are round, the tips are round. Then lastly, we have the leaves which are needle-like. They are very thin, they just look like the leaves. Then when we look at the arrangements of the leaf within the branches or within the plant, there are various of them. Some of them are simple, we call them the simple leaves, and others are compound. It means that the leaflets are attached to the petiole. Then, looking at the edges of the leaf, some of the edges might be smooth, like the first illustration, while some of them are toothed or they are serrated. They have rough edges around the margin, while others are lobed. Then lastly, as we look at the arrangement of the stem, some which are alternate as they are arranged in the stems, some they are directly opposite to each other, while others are pulled up. Moving forward, looking at the roots, a plant has different types of roots. For example, we have the tap roots, which are very common in the carrots. These ones, they have just one type of one branch of root. Then there are other roots that emerge from the main tap of roots, which are called the lateral roots. Then secondly, we have the fibrous root. Unlike the tap roots, we do not have the main type of root there. So this one, the roots, they emerge from every corner. Example, we have the grass and we also have sugarcane. Then lastly, we have the adventitious roots. Example is a bamboo tree. So these roots, they emerge from the stems of the plants. Then they hold up, they go down to the roots. So these are the three types of roots that are commonly found within the plants. First, the taproot, then the fibrous roots, and lastly, the adventitious roots. So still looking at the external features of plants, we have fruits. We have different types of fruits. There are some which are fleshy and others which are dried fruits. Example of fruits which are fleshy, we have like the berry, we have the apples, we have the strawberries, we have the cherries. These ones, they have a lot of flesh in them and a lot of juice which can be drained either to make juice or as you drink them. Then we have a different type of fruit which we call the dried fruits. These ones are not fleshy, they are dry. They can either be dry chemically or they are just dry by the way they are grown. An example of dried fruits, we have the peanuts. We have all types of peanuts. Then we also have the grapes which can be artificially dried. Then we also have like the apples which are also artificially dried. We have the coconuts also. So this type of fruit, they can either be artificially dried or they are naturally dry. We move to flowers. They are still part of external features of the plants. We have two types of plants. One are flowering plants and the others are non-flowering plants. So example of these non-flowering plants, it means that they have some flowers in them. For example, the monocotyledons and the dicotyledons. All these, they have a flower in one part of their growth, while there are other plants which do not have they do not have any flower. For example, we have the algae, we have the fungi, we have the ferns, mosses, and the gymnosperms. They do not have any flowers. Moving forward, now we're going to look at the external features of the animals. How do we identify the animals? We have 15 different ways in which we can look at the features of the animals. We have the fur, feathers, the beak, the tails, horns, trunk, the feelers, the claws, the wings, fins, the legs, the scales which are commonly found within the fish species, the shells, the task, and the hair. We're going to look at some of these external features, and we can identify these in terms of the way they move. What do they use to move? Then in terms of feeding, what do they use to feed? That external features. Then what is on the cover of their body? So in movement, animals have different features that help them to move. Wings, some of them have wings. It means that they can fly. Some of them have legs. For example, the human beings and the primates, all these, they can easily walk. Some of them have the limbs, and some of them have fins, which means that they can easily swim in the water. Looking at our illustration, we have example of organisms that can fly. It means that they have wings. Example, we have the birds and we have the butterflies. Then we have species or organisms that can easily walk because they either have the legs or they have the limbs. Example, we have the elephant. Then we have another type of organisms or species that can easily swim in water. For example, we have the dolphins. It means that they have the fins that easily help them to move within the water and the water environment. Then lastly, we have the slithers, which are found in organisms like the snails. These ones, they have the pseudo legs. We call them the false leg. They can easily move by using the false leg that they have. Then we can also identify organisms by their mode of feeding. What are these features that help them to feed in the ecosystem? For example, we have a mosquito. It has a sharp mouthpart called proboscis that it helps it in sucking of blood. Then we have a type of bird here. It has a very long beak that it normally uses while it's sucking the nectar in plants. Then we have a crocodile. It does not have all these features, the other features that we have mentioned, but it has a teeth which are very strong that it uses it for chewing and biting its prey. Then we can also identify organisms, still looking at the external features of animals. We can identify the organisms by what it's covered on their body. Some animals have fur, others have hair, others have feathers, while others have scales. Looking at the illustration, we have animals that have feathers. These are like birds. We have animals that have fur on them. These are animals like the cat, the cows, the sheep. All these, they have furs on their bodies. We have animals that have a shell. It's mostly used as a protective device. We have animals like the tortoise, also the snails. We also have animals like the frogs, that they have the skin. They have the skin. These are examples. Also, we have the human beings. They also have a skin. Lastly, we have animals or organisms that have scales on their bodies. These are animals like the fish. Then other features that can help us to identify external features of organisms. We have like other organisms. They have the trunk, tusk, claws, horns, and the tails. Looking at the illustration, we have an elephant here. It has the trunk, that is the long projecting part, like the nose that projects. That is what we call the tongue. So that is a distinctive feature which is found in animals and other organisms. Then we have the tusk, the long projecting, the whitish part on the elephant. So those are what we call the tusk. We also have other features like the claws, which organisms use, like the lions, while they are catching their prey, or like when they are climbing up. We also have organisms which have horns on them, like the cows, the goats. Then we also have organisms that have tail. So all these organisms, they have distinctive features that we can identify them with. So we're going to look at how are these plants and animals varying. All these are living organisms, but they vary. So we're going to look at the features of which that makes them to vary. Starting with the plants, they have a chlorophyll which helps them make their own food. The chlorophyll is the green pigment in the leaves that helps in the process of photosynthesis. So they are called autotrophs because they make their own food. While looking at the animals, they do not have the chlorophyll, so they eat plants and other animals because they cannot make their own food. So that's the first difference. Then the second difference, the plants, they store excess carbohydrates in the form of starch, unlike the animals that store carbohydrates in the form of glycogen. Then the third difference is the plants, they respond to change slowly. For example, a plant growing towards light. For example, if you put a plant in a room, then it is dark, then there's another inlet or a source of light. That plant will tend to be growing towards the source of light. It's not going to do it quickly, but it's going to move in that direction in a slower pace. While in animals, they respond to changes very quickly. For example, if a human being or an animal is pricked by a thorn, he is going to withdraw his hand or his feet immediately because he is able to respond to the change quickly. Then, another fourth difference is the plants do not move from one place to the other, which is different from animals who are in a position to move from one place to the other. Another difference between plants and animal is that growth occurs throughout the life of a plant, while in animals, growth occurs during the early life and stops at maturity. So there's a rapid stage of growth in animals that they grow and develop quickly. Then it reaches a certain time, like for the human beings, they stop growing and they have already matured, so they do not continue growing. While the plants, they will grow out through their lifespan. Then another difference between plants and animal, growth is at specific regions, for example, only at the roots and the stem. While in animals, growth occurs all over the whole body. It is not limited to any specific region. Then the last difference between plants and animal is that plants' body parts are spread out, while in animals, all the body parts are compact and they're both together because they function together. And that has been our lesson. And as we wind up, I'd like to leave you with an assignment. The assignment number 1, what are some of the features that help the fish survive on water? Then number 2, plants move but slowly. A, explain how the plants move, stating examples of the plant. Then B, state a reason that will make a plant to move. Thank you for listening. I have been your teacher, Madam Christine Okoth. See you in the next lesson. Thank you.